Hooday, Bengal fans. He is Mon. I am Jake. That is Eric. This is the Bengals Pulse, the heartbeat of our Cincinnati Bengals. Gentlemen, we are just over a week away from the first Bengals preseason game. Padded practice has begun. We are full steam ahead. We want to thank everybody for joining us tonight. Hooday, guys. Thank you again for joining us. We really appreciate you guys. Make sure you join in, add into the comments. Let us know what your thoughts are. We got a lot of Bengals news to talk about, guys. A lot going on at Paycor Stadium right now. But before we do, Mon, how's your week been, buddy?
Very good, very good. Same old, same old. Just living the life of a fireman. Very busy at home. Got a lot going on. Really excited about football season. Sort of a distraction from everything else that's going on. The Reds have collapsed. I don't care about the Reds right now. Training camp is awesome, and I just can't get enough of Bengal coverage. And I miss you too, guys.
Oh, thank you so
Oh.
much, Mon. We appreciate
Not
that.
really.
Not really. Eric, how's your week been, bud?
Yeah, it's been a week of, that fear of missing out. As season ticket holders, we get invites to all these cool things.
I
Seeing
know.
Joe Burrow and Jamar Chase, giving all those autographs, all the fun
Uh,
stuff going on. We need to move to Cincinnati. We need to get a big old house up there, big enough so the rest of the crew can come have places to stay when we go up there. It's hard. It's hard to watch all those cool things and know that you're invited to it all. That 13-hour drive is hard. So we'll survive
And you
though.
and you're going to be making that a lot again this year, I'm sure. Guys, again, it's crazy to think that the Bengals are kicking off the preseason in just over a week. We're going to talk about that next week, but we have a lot to get to tonight. Again, a lot of stuff going on at Paycor, a lot of positive going on at Paycor. So let's get the show started. Once again, guys, thank you so much for joining us tonight. We appreciate Hooday to everybody. Jennifer Ross, Overzealous, Cornell, we appreciate you guys so much. But let's get this thing started, Eric. Let's go. Let's roll.
Yeah, sure. The first topic we want to talk about and get your opinions on is the Bengals unveiled their much anticipated new locker room. A lot of cool features in there. Helmet dryers, shoulder pad dryers, USB ports, all these different charging ports. Joe Burrow has his own fridge. He had his fridge before, but this is a lot nicer. So I think everybody's really excited about it. We'll go to Jake first. What do you think about all the cool stuff you saw there?
Well, I want them to come down here to Florida and build my high school one. I mean, again, guys, it really just goes to show that this organization is trending so much in a positive direction. I can't imagine this is the best locker room in the NFL now with all of these new cool state of the art things. It's insane. They open the doors. It plays the Bengals fight song. I mean, you look at the lockers. I love the whole. I don't know if you guys saw the video, but Jamar had a couple of choice words about Joe Burrow getting the fridge and the microwave right next to his. No ping pong table yet. I'm sure that's coming down the road, though. There's no way they're not going to let Joe have his ping pong table. But the lockers themselves, I'll tell you guys, as a head football coach of a program, a locker room is so important. There's so many things that happen in a locker room, and again, for me, keeping it clean and keeping keeping it organized is such a big part of the program itself. And now the Bengals have all these incredible tools at their disposal. The helmet, the shoulder pad dryers, guys. I can't even imagine having that. Not walking into a locker room and it's smelling like a locker room. That is just crazy. But I'm one of those guys that I truly believe. If you surround yourself with organization and cleanliness and discipline, that all of that stuff, it matriculates onto the football field. And I just think this is such a huge positive direction for a organization that gets slammed for not spending money and not taking care of players. Well, now what do you got to say? That's kind of my thing. Mon, what do you think?
No, it was an eye catcher. Obviously, I love what Ted Karras said. It looked like a scene out of Tron, and it did.
That was good.
And
That was good.
it's beautiful. It's stunning. And I was listening to Paul Boehner's podcast, and he was asked the question: "Is this going to help free agents?" It's not going to hurt. I mean, obviously, it comes down to money. But when you walk in there and you see all those little perks and it's just the lockers are huge. There's all these little amenities there that guys want. I mean, cell phone chargers. I know it sounds silly, but you need it. I mean, everybody's connected now. They have their iPads, all that stuff. Some people might not get that, but it's really important, and it's beautiful. And don't forget, remember at the end of the year how they rate the facilities. The NFL Players Association rates all these teams for head coaching, food, how they treat their families. Well, I think the Bengals locker room got a D plus. I can guarantee you they're not going to get a D plus at this year's ranking. It's going to be an A. So, at least the Bengals are taking note. They want to create an environment. They want to set up their guys to succeed. They want them to be relaxed. They want them to be happy. Listen, stressed employees are ineffective employees. And these players are employees. And so guess what? They need to come in, create that environment, and let's go win a championship. Let's do it. And this is a positive step for the Bengals.
And look good, again, like I said, look good, play good, right? You look good, you feel good, you play good. That stuff translates to the football field, guys. I'm telling you, it does. Again, what I really love about it is, I don't know if you guys noticed these lockers, but there's a lot of Bengal tradition put into these lockers too. You have the original Bengals logo on it. You have the 90s logo. You have, when you pull the drawer open, it has who they think going to be the Bengals on there. I mean? It has so much tradition built into these lockers. And again, that's one thing I think as Bengal fans, especially Mon and I, 40 years plus, where you haven't seen that from this organization. You've wanted to see the tradition. You've wanted to see the effort put into it. And, it started with the Ring of Honor, and now the Bengals doing all these things for the alumni. And now you see it being put into the facilities. And I just love it. I mean, I just think, again, like Mon said, Paul Brown's signature. Thank you, Jennifer. Absolutely, Paul Brown's signature. Again, so much tradition in this organization that is starting to come out, and I love it. Listen, it's the Joe Burrow effect, guys. I mean, it all started. It trickulates down from him, and now when free agents come in. Not only are you going to be playing with the best quarterback in the NFL, but a winning organization now, and now you have the facilities thrown in. My question to you, Mon, is with all the money that is thrown into this, how does that affect what we're going to see here come down the road when they talk about renewing the stadium's lease? Is that going to come into effect for that?
That's a good question. The Bengals spent $39 million on renovations to the stadium.
Right.
I don't think they're going to drop 39. Yeah, they're not going to drop $39 million if they're not confident that a deal is going to get struck.
That's my point.
That's my point, right? I think it's going to happen. I mean, Jake, I got in a little Twitter battle, Jake, a couple days ago with somebody, and I didn't mean to get in a Twitter battle, but they jumped in, and
I think you did. You're undefeated. You're undefeated. So
actually, I have one loss. We'll talk about that later. Lindsay Patterson I saw her post something about she replied to somebody that was being idiotic about the Bengals. So of course I jumped in, and the woman was talking about poverty franchise. She didn't use the word poverty, but the Bengals are poor. They don't have any money. They're 32 out of 32 teams in net value, and the stadium's a dump and all this. I just replied back, from 2021 to now, the Bengals have gone up over $1 billion in net worth. Okay. Yeah, they are ranked 32 out of 32 teams in net worth. They're like $4 billion, $3.5–4 billion. Still, they've gone up over 25% in net value in 3 years. Business is good in Cincinnati. It's very good. And guess what? They're about to extend the lease. I think it's going to happen. They're going to dump $400–500 million in the Paycor to upgrade the facility for another 20 years. Hey, business has never been better in Cincinnati. And, I know people go, well, they're 32 out of 32 teams. Hey, they're worth $4 billion. And for a city the size of Cincinnati to have an NFL team, it's good. And it's good for the city. And everything is good in Cincinnati. And for people to say poverty this, poverty that, things are going well. The team is trending up. The franchise is making money. And the future, this is a golden era of Bengal football, the next 10 years. We're going to get a Super Bowl, guys, if not 2.
Agreed.
Sure.
Eric, all right, what we got next, bud?
Before I move on, just the last comment on there. One of the coolest things, you see it in college, you see it all over the place. The last thing they see when they walk out, and I'm sure they're going to touch it, but above the door it says "Win a game for Cincinnati." I love that. Putting that play on the song in there.
That's what I mean, man. So
that's going to build that. Yeah, bringing that college atmosphere into it, I think is going to be awesome. All right, moving on now. Speaking of winning a game for Cincinnati, we're going to need this guy to win lots of games for us this year. When we left last week, we didn't really know that he was holding in. We just thought maybe he was easing into camp. A week later, Jamar hasn't really practiced. We'll start with Mon, because I know you had some opinions on whether or not we get a deal done this offseason. Do you think Jamar's hold-in is going to lead to a deal this offseason, or is it just a negotiating tactic for the long term?
I think it will. I think the Bengals would prefer to wait another year, but I really think they're going to strike a deal. I think it's going to happen. Jamar is doing it the right way. I mean, he could be disgruntled. He could be one of the guys talking trash, and his agent could be saying things. He could be sitting somewhere else, not in Cincinnati. He's on the field. He is, using the jugs machine. He's not practicing, but he's getting the mental reps, and he's doing some other things. He's going to get his contract, and I think he will get it this year. One of the reporters for one of the websites, Ari Meroff, like 50,000 followers. They interviewed him today. He thinks the Bengals will strike a deal later on this camp with Jamar Chase, and I hope they do, because it's going to get more expensive next year. It really is. Reports are he wants to be the highest paid wide receiver. I think the Bengals can make it happen. I just hope he's a little flexible with the guarantees, but I expect him to sign this summer.
I agree, Mon. I think a couple things that you have to look at here, right? I think the first thing is, you said it, Mon, Jamar Chase is in the building, right? He's at practice every day. This is not a guy who is some kind of diva receiver that is holding out. He's there every day, so everyone can see him. I mean, we know he's a great leader on this football team, but he is there every day. And I think part of that is not just being a great leader. I think there's something in the works here. And again, I agree with you, Mon. I think that this gets done, and I think it gets done very soon. I think we're talking about in the next week or so, we are going to see that Jamar Chase has become the highest paid receiver in the NFL, and he deserves to be. I mean, to be realistic, he deserves to be. And I think what this does is it really kind of opens the gates a little bit for this organization. I think there's nothing but positive that will come out of the Bengals signing him now. You talked about it, Mon. It's going to continue to get more expensive. I mean, this year we've seen these wide receiver salaries go through the roof. We're seeing guys getting paid ridiculous amount of money that does not deserve it, to be honest. But that is just where it sits right now. And I think DJ Moore just signed, right? Like 4 years, over $100-something million. I mean, listen, it's just going to keep going up. the next year too, doesn't the team's salary that increases as well? So that's going to make it even more expensive. And I think I also believe what this does is, guys, I think it opens the gate to see if they can work in a T. Higgins deal. I think that's the domino that has to fall first is Jamar Chase. And then if there is an opportunity there, the Bengals can jump on it and take care of T. Higgins as well. And I just think I think there's a plan, and I hope I'm right about this, but I would not be surprised if Jamar Chase and Evan McPherson both get extended before this preseason part of it ends. I think it's going to happen. I think they're both going to get re-signed. I believe it.
So to circle back to all the haters out there that are talking about poverty franchise, all these QBs that have signed, that still nobody is higher paid than Joe Burrow. So we could be staring down, if Jamar signs and Money Mac signs, we could come out of this offseason with the highest paid quarterback, the highest paid wide receiver, and the highest paid kicker in the league. And I want to see how people try and spin it then. I mean, you can't pay everybody and make them all the highest paid, but if you have 3 of the highest paid players at their positions, you can't say that they're cheap anymore. That narrative has to die with the Jamar and the Money Mac deals.
Yeah, Jake, to follow up on what you said, Geno Atkins, Carlos Dunlap, over the years, all these other huge contracts they've signed during the summer. It's usually the last week in August, and I could see that happening with Jamar. I think Jamar is going to get his money. I think this is going to be T's last year. I really do. I hope not. I just don't see them signing 2 wide receivers to mega deals, because don't forget, guys, they're already thinking about Cam Taylor-Britt. They're already thinking about big contracts for those guys. Cam Taylor-Britt is contract eligible next year. So, trust me, they got a lot of players, a lot of young developing guys they're already planning for in the future. The salary cap will go up $8-10 million a year. So that's a positive. And but they got a lot of young studs that they got to start paying too. Jamar's going to get his money. McPherson will get his money. And hopefully we have a smooth sailing with other contracts down the road.
Overzealous wants to know, Mon. Yeah, well, let's answer Overzealous, because he wants to know how much we are still under the cap. I kind of lost track.
I'm looking it up right now. I'm looking it up. You guys keep on talking. I'll look it up.
Okay. I got it, Mon. Over the cap has us at $19,380,000 in space.
Okay,
$19 million Overzealous, and again, guys, that's a big chunk of change. It really is. I mean, at this point of the season, that's a lot of money. And again, I think there's been a plan. I really do believe that. I think they have spoke to Jamar already before it even all started, and I think there is a plan. And I just, with Jamar being there, I just don't see, and this hold in going on, I don't see it not getting done. But again, like I said, I think this speaks volumes about the character of Jamar Chase. He is, again, I mean, you can argue Justin Jefferson, Jamar Chase, but he is right there at the top of the list of the best receivers in the NFL. And he's never been a diva. He works his ass off. I mean, he is a guy that deserves this. And I don't know, Mon, I disagree with you. I think that T. Higgins is still in their sights, and I think that this helps that. And maybe I'm wrong, and maybe I'm being overly optimistic, but I just know how T feels. I know how Joe Burrow feels, and Jamar Chase, and T. Higgins is thought very highly of. And wasn't it interesting, too, that the guys they let in the locker room with Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase, T. Higgins. I don't know.
Hey, I hope they sign him, Jake. Jake, I hope they sign him. I'm all for it. I'm just trying to read some tea leaves here. They
I
are
got you.
19 million under the cap, but you guys know how the Bengals operate. About 7 million of that's going to be held during the season. So they really got about 11 to 12, and they got to make that work. Now, there could be some surprise cuts in preseason that could extend that. That always happens every year.
Sure.
Now, T. Higgins, yeah, absolutely. I mean, if they could sign him next offseason with a big contract or franchise tag him again and trade him, I don't know. But guys, they have spent a lot of draft equity on wide receivers the last 2 years. Can't deny it.
Yeah.
So we'll see how it shakes out.
So
we'll see
one
how it
final
shakes out.
question. One final question for both of y'all. How long do you think he holds in? Is he going to be into the preseason games? Are we going to see him practicing sometime here before the season? What are you thinking?
Well, I'll go first on this one. That's okay. I think, first of all, the good news is we don't need him to play in the preseason. I don't think it gets to that, though. I'm telling you guys, I feel like this is something that's going to get done within the next week, maybe the next 2 weeks. In that time frame. But I'm going to say by the second preseason game, Jamar Chase is extended. That's what I'm going to say. And I think
I hope you're right.
I think there's a plan. I think there's a plan. I believe there's a plan, and I think that it's hard for me to say, what exactly I feel, how long this is going to be, because I don't think he's going to have to hold in very much longer. Mon, what do you think?
I hope you're right. I think they will strike a deal. I think they're doing it the right way. He's not ruffling any feathers. I know him and Zach Taylor's really big about keeping that locker room, that chemistry, that the intangibles that the Bengals have. That great locker room. He doesn't want to poison it. It's not going to happen with Jamar Chase. He's a team player. I think Mike Brown will appreciate that. I think the Bengals front office appreciates that. I think they're going to find a way to strike a deal. They're going to make it work. And listen. I appreciate him being positive, because you see some of these other guys, Brandon Ayuk, everybody, these toxic atmospheres. You don't see that in Cincinnati. You don't see it, and it will get done, Bengal fans. It will. I want to say hi to Taylor Cornell. He has a great podcast. Thanks for being in the chat room, buddy.
Yeah, thanks, Taylor. We appreciate it. James, yes, the Battle of Ohio is back. Bengals sweep the Browns. No doubt about it. No doubt about it. All right, Eric, what do we have next on the docket here?
Not a Battle of Ohio. The Browns will just wave the white flag. That's my opinion. News came out. We don't love this list. It comes out every year. NFL top 100 players came out, and we had once again quite a few disrespectful rankings for the Bengals. So I wanted to get your guys' thoughts on it. Trey Hendrickson was 75 last year, had quite possibly the best season he's ever had, should have been all-pro, and he dropped to 77. Jamar Chase was 39 last year, and he dropped to 45. And Joe Burrow was 6 last year and dropped to 39. So, Jake, why don't you kick it off?
Oh, man, I got to watch what I say. Listen, guys, this is a perfect example of
earmuffs.
This is
I need a mute button.
Beep. I'm gonna try to word this properly. But this is a perfect example of what a circus looks like. This is what it looks like when you give people authority to reach a wide audience that has no idea what they're talking about. Again, they can say fans vote on this. There is no way that Trey Hendrickson is the 77th best player in the NFL. He is it's so crazy. I can't even believe I have to argue this point. It's absolutely ridiculous. The fact that Jamar Chase is the best receiver in the NFL. Again, I know they go by how the season went, whatever. Joe Burrow missed 8 games. He was 39th, whatever. Trey Hendrickson is the 3rd best pass rusher in the NFL last year. Jamar Chase is still one of the best receivers. I mean, even without Joe Burrow, Jamar Chase is still a top 3 receiver. I don't know. I can't even argue this point because, you just can't argue with morons. You know what I mean? You just can't do it. And they're morons. I mean, it's a clown show. That's why nobody respects those stupid lists. It's absolutely a joke. It's a joke. It's a joke that Trey Hendrickson wasn't an All-Pro last year. The All-Pro is a joke. The Pro Bowl is a joke. The top 100 is a joke. They're all a bunch of clowns running this circus. And, whatever. Let them do it. We'll just keep winning football games. The Bengals have been one of the top 5 best teams in this league the last 3 years. Let them talk. Let them do all theirs. I cannot deal with idiots, and they're idiots.
And yet he's talking to us.
Jake, I'm a little concerned. I just picked up my blood pressure medication. I'll drive it over. I think you need a pill.
No, I took mine this morning.
Did you?
I knew we were going to be talking about this.
I could tell. Okay. Guys, we talked about it before the show started. I haven't really been following it. I really haven't. I have seen some stuff on Twitter. Don't get me wrong. When I saw Trey Hendrickson in the 70s, I'm like, that's comical. It's ridiculous. The top 100 I've been following is Good Berries, top 100 Bengals, but it's, I don't want to keep up with the national media, these lists just, they don't do anything for me. We know as Bengal fans how good Trey Hendrickson is. We know how good Jamar Chase is. We know how good Joe Burrow is. Teams would love to have those players. Every team in the NFL would love to have them. And we're lucky to have them. And so I don't need those guys. I know what we have. I don't need anybody else to tell me what we have. And just screw those guys. And let's just focus on our Bengals, man, in the 2024 season.
I do like this point, though. I do want to say this is, hopefully this does. You wonder what the players think about this, right? I mean, obviously Trey Hendrickson and Jamar Chase and Joe Burrow, they look at those things and they know it's a joke. I mean, they know that it's an absolute joke. Those guys know how good they are. You have players in the NFL being interviewed that have said, what's his name? What's the Bills tackle? He's like, listen, Trey Hendrickson is the best pass rusher in the NFL, right? I mean, even the players in the NFL understand how good these guys are. Jamar Chase is the best receiver in the NFL. Joe Burrow is the best quarterback in the NFL. I mean, it's an absolute joke. It's a joke. And how can these people possibly think anybody's going to take them seriously when this is the kind of stuff that they spew out of their mouth? Again, and this is, Mon, you talked about last week. This is why I have stopped. I don't even pay attention to what any of the national media writers and pundits. They are all a bunch of clowns as far as I'm concerned. They're clowns. They're clowns.
Giving me lots of clips.
Listen,
here.
I'll tell you this. Dan Horde, Paul Boehner, Jay Morrison, James Rapine, the Cincinnati guys. Let's Ace and Zim get all Bengal players on there. I was talking about Taylor earlier. He gets reporters on his podcast. That's where I get my info. That's where I don't get it from Schefter, Ian Rappaport, and all these guys. The guys in the city, the guys that follow the team, that have connections, that's where you get your Bengal info from. You just can't depend on the national guys. You really can't. And, that's agent driven. Those agents, they grease those guys, man. They get that information out for those agents. It's follow the local media. That's the best way to get the Bengal news that you need.
Yeah.
Agree.
I will say that the one thing that I love about these lists every year is it gives us a good chip on their shoulder. I mean, I want someone to take this list, put it in the locker room, and let the Bengals team tell us, do you really think that Tua is better than Joe Burrow? Is Tua better than Jamar Chase? Is Dak Prescott better than Joe Burrow? You ask any GM in the league who they want Joe Burrow over anybody, he'd be up there 1 and 2. So put it in the locker room, let them comment on it, let them get their chip on the shoulder, let it grow ever bigger. And the disrespect is so high. adding on to the motivation for this team to get to New Orleans and prove Dan Hort's prediction right. So
listen,
that's
guys,
crazy.
Joe Burrow could walk out there for a 60-minute football game and hand the ball off, kind of like what Scott Mitchell did against the Broncos. He could hand the ball off 87 times, and he's still better than Dak Prescott. Joe Burrow could go out to the field and not throw one pass for an entire game, and he would still be ranked higher than Dak Prescott. I mean, they're clowns.
Dak is a good player. Dak's a good player. He's not Joe Burrow. Dak's a good player.
I would have you in your prime ranked over Dak Prescott. I would have you.
I was second
year.
team All Middle East. I was second team All Middle East. I was something else. 3 years in a row.
He's in his prime right now, Jake.
He's in his prime.
I would say I had a cannon.
I don't know about that.
Bad thing to say.
I don't know. I'm not sure you're in your prime when you're taking that much medication.
All right,
back to the show.
I do love what Vanguard said though. It's a good point, guys. And I know we don't want to talk about this until we're blue in the face, but Vanguard said, listen, it's crazy how this national media has this thing for the Bengals, right? Jesse Bates had 2 incredible years with the Bengals, gets no love, and immediately goes to another team and gets love. I mean, there is something there, right?
So let me add on to that, because we were talking about our group chat with Ace and Zim. There is something there. Joe Mixon, everybody told us that Joe Mixon was washed up. We shouldn't sign him. We should cut him, get rid of him, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, he gets traded to Houston. Last year, okay, Madden football ratings. I don't know if anybody that plays Madden or they don't. All it's based on is their athletic ability, their age, their tendencies, their ability to do this, the jump, speed, all of this. Last year with the Bengals, and it was his highest year ever, he was graded 91. Never been higher than a 91. Running backs age, they get older, they go down. The man gets traded to the Houston Texans. Now, these grades are not supposed to be based on anything other than athletic ability. He goes from a 91 to a 97 rating. So suddenly he became one of the most athletic running backs in the league. He's now the 10th best running back in Madden, and all he did to deserve it was leaving the Bengals. There is a bias there is built in. I don't know how, but it's there.
Listen, I don't know.
I'm a mix. I
don't know.
I love Joe Mixon. Yeah, I don't know. I'm showing my age. I don't play Madden. I'm sorry. I don't know the ratings.
The last video game you played was Pong, right?
Pitfall on Atari. That was the best, man.
Pitfall was fun. Matt, it's supposed to be the ratings. The ratings are very heated discussion on them because it's all based on a player's athleticism, how high they can jump. They grade each thing, how fast they are. They're cut back, and then they all add those up and they average them out to get their number. So it's not supposed to be based on anything about the team that you're playing on. So
some guys play video games. I work out at a gym. All right, I play in the dirt. All right, I'm a grown man. All right,
your life's a video game. You got to jump, just like Mario Brothers. You gotta jump over, grab the fire hose, put the fire out.
Yeah,
save life.
No, I don't know much about Madden ratings. I really don't know much about that. I'm a Joe Mixon guy, but he's not a top 3 running back in the NFL. I'm sorry, he's not. He's a good football player. I think he's gonna do well for the Texans. But what was Zach Moss's grade, Eric?
79.
See, that's crazy, man. That's insane.
It's crazy. It's funny.
I don't know.
It's really funny. I mean, how do you not laugh?
Let's get off video games. Let's get off.
Let's get off it. But I do want to say this though. I'm not. Hey, John, thanks for joining us, man. We appreciate it. I love Jennifer's comment. Put Jennifer's comment on there about Paul Brown turning down. Yeah, I mean that's a great point there. Those kind of things they exist. I mean, we know the Bengals before Joe Burrow. I mean, they never got a lot of love prime time, and I don't know if we want it or not. But Cornell said something, and he's right. I mean, this is a true statement. Joe Burrow has done more. Let me see what he wrote. This is from Cornell. Joe Burrow has done more than Tua, Josh Allen, and Dak Prescott. He has done more than any of those guys, even with the injuries. That is a true statement.
It is.
That is 100% true. It is true. And that is my point. Even with Joe Burrow's injuries last year, he played 8.5 games. He still should have been ranked higher than all three of those clowns. I mean, it's just crazy. It's just crazy. All right, let's move on. Let's go.
All right, let's move on to some camp news and notes. We've got our first padded practices. Before we get into that, though, we did get our roster up to 90 by signing cornerback Nate Brooks, wide receiver Hakeem Butler, and a third punter, bringing in Ryan Reckow. I can't pronounce that. Did hear some commentary how the Bengals did have him as a draftable punter. Some reason the Chiefs signed him and then turned around and cut him. So what are your thoughts on those signings? Jake, you go first.
Well, I'm going to go with the Hakeem Butler one. Listen, guys, and Eric, you have talked this guy up. I'll admit I don't really follow the UFL very much. I know you both watch quite a bit of it. Eric, I know you are a big what is it called? The Silverhawks?
A Battlehawks. Come on.
Battlehawks.
What's wrong with you? That's AJ Mack's team.
Listen, I was thinking Mon, I was thinking Silverhawks.
Whoa.
But Silver Fox.
That's the wrong finger. Hey, wrong finger.
But listen, I don't know a lot about this guy. I haven't really ever followed, but I saw his highlights when he played for the Battlehawks. And already, guys, he is making some serious noise at camp. This is a guy that could seriously make a run at this football team, right? I mean, he's a big body receiver. He's fast. He's got good length to him. He's going up and making contested catches, making sideline catches. I don't know, guy. This is the other two, I really haven't followed that much. By the way, Jake Fraley just hit a 3-run homer. It's now 6-3 Cubs. Come on, Reds. So, but Hakeem Butler could end up being a great pickup here, right?
Yeah, looking at his measurables, he's a big guy. UFL Offensive Player of the Year. I mean, I watched a lot of those games. It was good, fun football to watch. He's in there. He's going to be battling. The Bengal wide receiver core is so deep and so talented.
It's crazy. Crazy.
I don't know if they can make him I don't know if you mentioned it, like a hybrid tight end because he's so big. I read some Twitter comments on that. He's a wide receiver. Can he make it practice squad? I don't know. We are so deep there, but he definitely has a lot of potential. The kicker, the punter, is really intriguing because he was pretty highly thought of. I was reading some draft profiles of him, and to have him in there, having 3 punters. They did get another defensive back. He's bounced around NFL rosters quite a bit, yeah. So he's a camp body.
He's been on quite a few rosters, right?
Yeah, I think 7 or 8 teams. He's been on a couple practice squads. They need numbers back there. They need some guys to give them some snaps. Yeah. Don't be surprised if there's a cut late in the season, late in the preseason. Our cornerback 6 could be on another roster right now. Mm-hmm. And, our backup interior offensive lineman could be on another roster. So we'll see that in a few weeks. But no, they had to fill out the roster. They had 87 spots. Now they're at 90. I'm really intrigued about Butler. I really am. I think he's very intriguing. Let's put it that way. I mean, some of the plays he made in that size, I mean, that's big time, guys. That's a mismatch. And I think Joe Burrow could fall in love with that guy.
Well, and just to give some context, he's been on the Battlehawks for both of the last 2 years. He did have some stints in the NFL. I think he was at the Steelers camp last year, but it's kind of like
he didn't make the Jamar's
down there somewhere. He didn't make the Steelers. No, it was kind of a F at Jamar's down there somewhere. It was kind of how it was for the Battlehawks. F at Hakeem's down there somewhere. I always thought he was a tight end, and when they said he was a wide receiver, I'm like, oh, I didn't realize that he actually is listed as a wide receiver. I mean, my thought is to make this roster, he should be seen as a tight end. That's really, we got a crowded room there as well, but I don't know. I think he could be something special, a hybrid tight end in the slot type. Some other thoughts on the other guys that we signed. One of the podcasters that was out at watching Bengals practice did comment on, he heard this loud boom and didn't know he hadn't heard it before on a football field, and he turned around and it was the new punter kicking the ball. He'd never heard anybody kick one that hard.
Really?
So that's intriguing. Zach Taylor did say in his press conference that they probably won't go into the preseason with 3, but they figured out they need to fill the roster out. So give it a shot. And then I think James Rapien was reporting that Robbins wasn't out there as much. It was the 2 undrafted free agents that were out there kicking. So it's almost like they're competing against each other to compete with Brad. So it'll be interesting to see where they go with that.
Yeah, I was gonna make the point that maybe, bringing in a punter, right? You have 3 open spots, and I was gonna say that, Jennifer. So I agree with you 100%. But why not bring in a running back or a guard, right? Bring in an interior offensive lineman, bring in a running back. Instead, you bring in a third punter. I don't know, guys. I don't think that speaks very highly of our punters, right? You have Brad, obviously, and then you draft a punter, and then you go out and you get an undrafted rookie. I don't know. What do you guys don't think? I don't know. That kind of doesn't speak well, right?
Reading tea leaves, maybe they're not impressed with the punting that they've seen in camp already. Robbins had an uneven year last year, and I'm not trying to be silly here, but we got this new kickoff rule also. You're not going to put McPherson out there and let him get hurt on a kickoff return. So you got a bunch of punters out there that can kick. One of the guys is 6'4", 235, the kicker from BYU. He's a big guy. So, this is brand new. What's happening in the NFL this preseason with the new kickoffs, and everybody's experimenting. You heard the Kansas City Chiefs are using a safety to be kickoff specialist. The Bengals are bringing in extra punters. This one guy's 6'5", 230. We'll see. And they're not keeping 2 punters. I know that. But it's experimental phase, trying to figure out what's going on. We'll get more clarity in a couple weeks.
Gonna be, and you made a great point, Mon, is, Hakeem Butler, if he makes this roster with as good as this receiver room is, it is, it's impressive. Overzealous wants to know, do they trade one of those receivers? I don't know if they do. They're not getting rid of Yoshi, right? There's no way that's happening. Trent Irwin is a Joe Burrow guy. Joe Burrow loves him. Maybe would it be Chucky Sizzle? I don't know. I don't know if I just don't see that happening. I think the other thing is, and your guy Cedric Jackson's out there making plays, Mon. Joe Burrow talked about those young guys that are really coming into their own now. So it's going to be a great battle, and I could just see this Hakeem Butler guy being one of those preseason stars, right? You have a couple of those every year, a guy that really shines, and I could see Hakeem Butler being that guy.
Yeah, I still think it's going to be a long shot for him. Charlie Jones is really impressed, especially in that first padded practice. We're about to talk about that in a few minutes. Really made some good plays. Yoshi Voss is definitely a lock for the team, but Cedric Jackson, I know Burrow has mentioned him, but Zach Taylor has really gone out of his way to mention him a few times. So it makes me think maybe they want him. Maybe they keep 7 wide receivers. He could be wide receiver 7 potentially for kickoff returns, special teams, heavy. So again, I know we've talked about this for weeks. Man, this is the biggest unknown ever in preseason when it comes to this kickoff rule. We don't know what to expect. We don't know. Some teams could have 5 running backs. They really could.
Yeah.
So it's going to be interesting to see across the league how these NFL rosters, how these roster spots break down.
Yeah, it is going. We talked about it on the show. It seems like every week, it's going to be interesting to see now, something like, the Bengals have always kept 10 linemen. It's going to be interesting now if they start looking at those different positions because of this new special teams rule. Going to be interesting to see.
For sure. So we kind of touched on a little bit already, but let's get into some of these camp standouts. All the reporting that I'm hearing and the videos that we're seeing, it really sounds like Yoshi is solidifying himself as wide receiver 3. There's been a lot of Chuck Sizzle videos out there these last few days. It's getting really interesting at wide receiver. And then the other big thing that we got, especially in pads, was this. I don't think we could say it any different other than just Amarius Mims. Wow, that guy is just. I mean, we can go back. We should go back to our draft night take and cut up.
I was just thinking
Jake's
that.
reaction.
I'm glad.
And then have Jake reacting to Amarius Mims actually playing.
Jake, let me help you.
I'm glad I was wrong.
His blood sugar was low that night. He wasn't feeling well. He had a fever. Jake, I'm helping you out. His blood sugar was low. It was in the 50s, okay? So
it's a weird feeling being wrong, guys. It's a weird feeling. I'm not used
admitting you're wrong, but being wrong, you're used to.
No.
Break out the receipts. Break out the receipts.
Listen. I'm glad. Listen, and we haven't taken a snap yet in a game, but yes, it is trending like Amarius Mims might be the steal of the draft.
I wish I could put Matt's comment up there, but I'm just going to say I agree, Matt. I can't put that up there.
Matt Silva, you're something else, man.
That's funny. That's good stuff. But yes, I was extremely mad and upset. But again, it's going to be interesting to see what happens now with Trent Brown, right? I mean, how is Amarius Mims not on the field? How is he not on the field now? So now the talk is, again, we've talked about this on the show, is Trent Brown moving to guard? Again, is he battling with Volson for that left guard spot now? I don't know. It's going to be interesting to see. But Amarius Mims has got to be on the football field. He is what the Bengals obviously thought he was going to be and what I didn't think. I mean, again, I think history backs me up a little bit, gentlemen, before we get all crazy about me being wrong. But I do think history did back me up a little bit.
You sound like the people that say the Bengals are cheap and they lean on history. You're wrong. Mon, what do you think?
Mims is going to be our tackle for the next 10, 12 years. I think he's going to be that good. He's impressed me. But, guys, I got to say something. Trent Brown hasn't been cleared yet, has to get in better shape. If Trent Brown is cleared and healthy, he's one of our best 5 offensive linemen. He's a good football player. He really is a good footgoing player. And, I mean,
who's the odd man out?
Who's the odd man? That's a good question. But he's going to be one of our starters. He is. He's a good player. And the knock on him is staying in shape and other things. But if he's dialed in and he gets in better shape, he's going to be on the field. And could you imagine playing those uneven lines, unbalanced lines for running plays, having all those guys on there? I mean, the Bengals should get 200 yards rushing every game.
You got 3 guys, 6'8", over 350 pounds. That's that's very scary.
Volson 6'7". Yeah. It's a skyline. Joe Burrow's gonna look like Drew Brees back there. He's gonna look like a tiny little guy.
But can you imagine if Trent Brown is healthy enough to pull? Can you imagine being a linebacker and seeing a 6'8", 350-pound man coming around the edge ready to destroy you? I mean, this offensive line could be very, very good. I'm talking about one of the best in the league as far as the starting 5 goes. And that's not a homer. That's the truth. I mean, if Amarius Mims is what we think he's going to be, this offensive line has jumped up from one of the bottom, maybe being about average, to above average, one of the top 10 offensive lines in the NFL.
I can't wait to see, even if Mims wins the starting, say they give him the starting job right now, Mims is going to play a lot in those preseason games. I can't wait to see him out there in those preseason games, tossing those second stringers around. There might be a point where Zach Taylor looks up and says we have to start him. There's no way we can't start him. That's what I'm looking forward to.
Yeah, it's going to be interesting. How about guys? How about Eric All? Eric All again. The Bengals. Eric All fell to the Bengals. He was one of the highest rated tight ends in this draft. He falls to the Bengals because of all of this injury talk. Guys, he's been cleared. He's ready to go. I was not expecting that.
I wasn't either. I thought he was going to be a PUP. I should have listened to. Got to give a shout out to Victoria in Spaces. She's a big Bengal Twitter follow. She's a doctor of physical therapy. If she called it, she says he's going to get cleared. Should have listened to her. She's a smart one. And I thought for sure he'd be PUP. We see him maybe week 5, 6, somewhere around there. But made a good play in pads the other day. Guys, I think he's going to be one of our better draft picks in this draft. I really do. Watching his college tape, especially when he was at Michigan, that guy's a player, man, and he's a local guy too. So he's going to be excited about playing for that home team. So I can't wait to see him on that field 100% healthy, because it's going to add another dimension to this offense.
I mean, this Bengals, sorry, Eric, but this Bengals tight end room and receiver room is just ridiculous, guys. It's ridiculous, and it's gonna suck that the Bengals are gonna have to cut a couple of these guys, because they're or at least move them. I mean, we're gonna have guys that get plucked off of this roster because of how talented our tight end room and our receiver room is. I mean, I don't know. It's just going to be interesting to see who the Bengals keep. I mean, you can't keep 5 tight ends, right? I mean, you can't keep 8 receivers. There's going to be good players that are going to be on the street because these 2 rooms are just so loaded with talent. It's insane. Guys, we haven't even talked about Jermaine Burton. Have you seen the plays he's making? It's ridiculous. I mean, he is already if Yoshi starts over him, I don't even know what to tell you. This is one of the best receiver rooms that Joe Burrow has ever had.
And that was on the camp standouts. That was going to be one of my questions too, because all the things that I'm hearing is about Tanner Hudson and how great he's looked. One defender even said, Tanner always gets open. I don't know what he's doing. He's always getting open. We've heard before from Joe how much of a connection they have. I don't see a team without Tanner Hudson on. So who do you cut? You can't pup Eric All anymore. You're gonna try and hide the other Tanner on the practice squad. Maybe this is conspiracy theory in me going, Zach Taylor's talking up all these people like Shedrick Jackson. Maybe that's the salesman in Zach Taylor, seeing these guys and the talent he has, knowing that, hey, I can't keep these guys and it's hard for them to make the team. Let me let the world know that they're really good so I can go get some trade value back from them. Maybe that's where we're at.
Yeah, maybe.
Dave Lapham mentioned it on Dan Hord's podcast. He was talking about how deep this roster is and how there's going to be a lot of great players that are going to get plucked and picked up by other teams. And he mentioned some of the guys you just mentioned, Eric. I know everybody loves Hudson, and I just don't see them cutting the tight ends that they drafted. I don't see it. I know Sample's a lock. He signed a 3-year contract. Gesicki's going to make the team.
You got to go with Joe Burrow, though.
They're not cutting Hudson. Joe Burrow, I don't know if you saw Joe Burrow's last presser. Hudson's not going anywhere. He's not going anywhere. I mean, Joe Burrow talked about Gesicki, Sample, and Hudson. I mean, he talked about them very highly. Those 3 guys are not going anywhere. So now you have to look at Eric All, right? You have to look at
he's not
McClanahan. It's oh man. I mean, it's crazy.
You don't cut draft picks, man. You don't cut draft picks.
They're not.
Yeah, but we had
cutting
10 draft picks.
Yeah,
I can't keep all of them.
They're not cutting Hudson. I'm telling you right now.
What was Tanner? Tanner was what, a 5th, 6th round pick? Hudson, the one from this year.
McLaughlin.
Oh, McClanahan. He was 6th. He was 6th, I think.
I think they make the team. I nothing against Hudson, guys. I just don't see him. I think they keep 4 tight ends. I think they keep 2 of the rookies, and I think Gesicki and Sample are locks.
I was worried about that, Mon. I was thinking the same way. But when you listen to these press conferences and you listen to the guys talk, he's been one of the camp standouts, and these guys love him.
Yeah,
I don't
Burrow
think he's
loves
going
him.
anywhere.
We'll see. I could be wrong. We'll see.
Yeah, go ahead, Eric.
If they cut him, Jake will dry his head like Burrow's.
What's Mon going to do if they don't, though? That's the real question. What is Mon going to do if they don't?
I'll shave half the mustache.
No. This you dye the stash to look like Joe Burrow and BJ Hill.
I'll look like one of the Village People guys. I can't. No, man.
Oh, no, there's an easy solution here. Hudson makes the team. Mon buys us Tanner Hudson jerseys.
Oh, I like that.
You guys, Tanner. I'll find some bootleg and just get Hudson put on there like duct tape.
Listen, I'm telling you, we've seen it with Trenton Irwin. When Joe Burrow speaks of someone, they are on this roster. Joe Burrow has never spoke about somebody that is not on this Bengals roster that wasn't obviously signed by a big deal or so. I'm not talking about that, but I'm talking about those kind of guys, the Trenton Irwins, the Hudsons, the guys that Joe Burrow talks about, throws out there. Those guys make the team. They just gave Joe Burrow an entire locker with a refrigerator and microwave. You think they're going to cut one of his favorite players to throw to? There's no way Hudson's going in.
Eric, do you have any more questions, Eric? Because I got one.
No, go ahead. Go ahead.
Yeah. Okay. This is a tough one.
Okay.
Give me a surprise cut, a potential surprise cut.
Ooh. Man, that is a good one. It's hard because I don't see a receiver or a tight end being one of those cuts. God, that's a good one, Mon. That's a good one. I would probably go with. See, but that's kind of an obvious thing. I don't know, Mon. Let me think about it for a minute. You tell me, Mon.
Eric,
you obviously have somebody thought.
I'm going to go out there. I'm looking at this wide receiver room. I'd say Trenton Irwin.
I was going to say the same thing. I was going to say, listen, I'm not saying I want it. Joe Burrow loves him. He's a veteran presence. We got young guys there. But, man, there's some young talent there that they love. Do they want to expose them to the waiver wire and let them get plucked? Yeah. Listen, they would love to have a Shedrick Jackson on the practice squad. Charlie Jones on the practice squad. He's going to make the team. But there's a lot of talent there. I don't know. Trenton Irwin could be, but right now I have him as wide receiver 6. They could go 7 a wide receiver also. They could go deep at tight end.
Just a few years ago, Trenton Irwin was the practice squad guy. It's not like he's been entrenched for years. He just came up and took his.
Well, though, man.
Yeah, yes.
I'm going to say that's a good question, Mon. I don't see there being a crazy surprise cut. I really don't. Obviously there could be, but maybe I don't. God, I don't know. That's a great
surprise trade. Then surprise trade. We could trade one of these guys.
We could trade one of them. That would be interesting to see if that happens. I mean, again, we talk about the Bengals need another running back. That could be the way to go. And Chris Evans wouldn't be a crazy cut. That would be an easy one to throw out there, but I don't think that would be a crazy cut. William, I don't know if they cut him either. I don't know. I think it's do you see them cutting one of those offensive line, like I guess one of those 6 offensive linemen? Do you see that being the case?
I don't. I could see a potential trade potentially because I think they're really deep at defensive end. I could see a Cam Sample potentially, some team really that gets ravaged by injuries. Don't forget they got Gunther on the practice squad. They got a lot of young talent there. I like Cam Sample. I think he's a good player. And You know, I think, we have a great roster. There are going to be some bubble players that could be surprise cuts. I know we've been going an hour, guys, but one other thing I just want to bring up. Did you guys see the interview? They talked about Sam Hubbard and he was playing basically with one leg last year. He had a severe ankle sprain and he was out there playing his heart out. Guys, I respect that. That's a warrior, man. That's what I want on a football team. But let me ask you this, Jake, you're a coach. I mean, are you really helping your team or are you hurting your team? Are you trying to tell me Cam Sample with two strong legs and younger and, you don't think he would be a little more productive and would help your team a little bit more? I just feel like this. I
I don't know.
appreciate it. They're paying him $10 million a year. I don't want him benched, but if he's hurt, is he really helping your team going out there being a tough guy like that?
I think that's an interesting question because, obviously, and we haven't spoke about it, but obviously he was carted off this week for a potential knee injury. Thank God that it came back. Everything was okay. So thankfully for Sam Hubbard, because I would love to see the guy healthy, right? You just would like to see a whole season with this guy healthy. This is my thing, Ron. This is my thing is Lou talked about early on in this off season that and even just recently how important Sam Hubbard is to this defense. And there are more things that go into it than just having healthy two legs, right? We don't know what Sam Hubbard does, but I'm guessing that he's probably one of the guys out there that's making some of the calls, maybe making some of the line calls, maybe making some of the stunt calls. Maybe he could end up being that quarterback on the defensive side of the ball in that front seven that we don't see. So there's something going on there because Lou has talked about him being this piece of the puzzle that is, that they have to have. And so I don't think it all comes down to, and as a coach, we look at, there's a lot of different things we look at, but as a coach, I can tell you, we love effort. And if there's one thing Hubbard does is he is an effort guy, and he's an effort guy on every single play. And that does carry some weight, Mom.
I appreciate that. He's a warrior. And trust me, a healthy Hubbard is unbelievable. And I'm glad he's a starter on the team. I like him being on the team. I guess I just want to make it clear, if you're injured and you're limited, I love the intangible part. They need you out there to motivate the team. You're sort of you become the pulse of the team. But man, if you're playing on one leg, you're really fit. There has to be a fine line. There has to be. And I think a younger player that's healthy, two good legs, could maybe be a little more productive. I was just listening to that podcast and I'm like, man, that's a tough one as a coach. It really is. I agree with what you're saying. He is that important. He's a key cog to this defense. And I could see where Lou would fall in love with him. But there's also a fine line. If the guy's hurt, the guy's hurt.
There's a fine line. I would say this too. I would say this is we saw Sam Hubbard last year basically on one leg the entire season. I still think he was better than Joseph Asai. I still think he was better than Cam Sample. I still think he's better than those guys with a banged up leg. And that doesn't speak very highly of those other guys. It doesn't.
Cam Sample's pretty good. Cam Sample's good. It's just, the Bengals aren't going to.
But he's not better than Hubbard.
No. I'm not saying that. I'm not saying that. But I think he's better than Hubbard with 1.5 legs. But go ahead.
Well, and Hendrickson had his best year of his career, but he really didn't have any help from that other side. So couldn't we have put Miles Murphy over there? Maybe you still let him play, but just don't have him play as much as he did. A little bit of push from that other side, and Trey Hendrickson would have set the record for sacks, the NFL record, because he was just going off. But there was never that additional push from that side that drove the players to Trey. That's what made the season even more phenomenal. He had to do it all on his own.
Eric, you're right. He did 17.5 sacks, and he had no consistent teammate on the other side. Look at who's the guy for the Steelers, Highsmith and the Watt guy. Look at them. I mean, that's a hell of a tandem. But he doesn't have that. Hendrickson doesn't have it. And So I don't know, man. I just thought it was interesting. I just wanted to bring that up and wanted your
Yeah,
take.
I think it's a great point. I mean, it is a great point, and I think I think two names are going to play an important role on this defensive line, and that's Miles Murphy, right? I mean, this guy he's got to be what the Bengals expected him to be. When you get taken in the first round, you've got to give 500 great snaps somewhere. And I think Sheldon Rankin is that other guy that helps that with that interior pressure on that defensive line. It'll be interesting to see.
Eric, I want you to bookmark this episode. Last question. Give me how many team sacks we have this year. I'm saying it right now. The Bengals are going to get 56 team sacks. Bookmark it.
I'm going to go, instead of giving you a number, I'm going to go over. I'm going to go over 56.
Wow. I thought 56 was a little bonkers. Okay, that's good.
It is. 56 is bonkers, but I'm going over. Eric, what do you think?
We had 40-some last year. I think they get 56. I really believe it.
I do too.
I believe it.
I believe it. Go ahead, Eric. What do you think? Real quick.
It's not really a stat that I don't really ever think of team sacks and how, so I don't know really where we stand up. What's the record?
Well, I can tell you this, that Sheldon Rankins and Miles Murphy, I think, are both going to contribute where they didn't get that last year. They had over 40 last year, and they got no help from anywhere. I mean, most of those sacks from that 40 half of them were Trey Hendrickson, and then you had a bunch from the linebackers. Mike Hilton had some. Dax had some. I mean, it was coming from everywhere. But I'm telling you, Chris Jenkins too. Yes, absolutely, 100%. Chris Jenkins is another guy that I think contributes to that as well.
If Rankins and Hill can give us what Ogunjobi and Hill gave us 2 years ago, that's 14 and a half sacks. We're going to be fine. I think we'll get 15 to 16 from Trey. From those three guys, we'll have at least 30. So we need 26 more sacks from the rest of the guys.
From somewhere. Let me say this too. I know we got to go, but I want to say this too, and this is coming from the coaching standpoint. Last year, the back end of this defense was atrocious. This year, with as good as that back end is going to be, it is going to create at least 10 to 15 more sacks. Having those two guys at safety, having a healthy group of corners is going to create more sacks, guys. I'm telling you now, when you fix the back end of the defense, it works its way all the way up to the front of the defense and that front seven. And having those two great safeties and having a good, healthy cornerback room is going to create at least 10 or 15 more sacks. Book it. Guaranteed.
We'll see.
All right, guys. All right. That is another edition of the Bengals Pulse. As always, guys, first of all, thank you guys so much. So many great comments tonight. Thank you, guys. We appreciate you joining us tonight. You guys are awesome. As always, if you like this podcast, make sure you like, share, and subscribe to this podcast. Make sure you check us out on all the awesome podcast platforms, Apple, Stitcher, Spotify. As always, if you like this podcast, make sure you give us that 5-star review. We very much appreciate that. As always, follow Mon on Twitter at @TheFireMon. Follow me on Twitter at CoachJakeOwens9. Follow Eric on Twitter at eFlash with 2 H's 88. Follow the Cincinnati Podcast Network on Twitter at CincinnatiPod. And as always, follow the Bengals Pulse on Twitter at Bengals_Pulse9. The same on Instagram without the @ Bengals_Pulse9. And again, guys, as always, check out all the awesome podcasts right here on the Cincinnati Podcast Network. Guys, we are just over a week away from the first preseason game. Next week on the Bengals Pulse, we will get you ready for that first preseason game. He is Mon. He is Eric. I am Jake. I almost said I'm Eric. I am Jake. This is the Bengals Pulse. Hoo day, Bengal fans. We will see you next week.